Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Evolving Democracy. This is episode 7. I'm here with my good friend Joni, and today we're talking about audacious activism. Now, what the heck is this all about? We've talked before about how taking little steps, like anything anyone can do, will take, yes, please. But also, can we perhaps grow into something bigger? For example, us sitting here talking, it wasn't like last year or even the year before, whatever, that I was like, oh, let's go do a weekly live where we talk about politics. This is a stretch. This is for us to do something that's was beyond our comfort zone. Now
Mhm.
it's pretty comfortable. We can grow our comfort zone and become more of who we are and show up and do the things that we feel can make a difference. So we're inviting people today to be audacious. What more can you do? How can we push this farther and keep it going and get the momentum built so that we can continue to turn the tide on everything that's going on, which somehow made me think of the green reflecting pool, but that's a whole nother story. Love to hear your thoughts, Joni, on this audaciousness we're inviting today.
Yeah, we are inviting people into audaciousness, but it also remember that what we like to do is all unique. And we've talked before about how you can, find your lane, find your thing that works, whether it's Christy talked about not liking phone banking, but she tried it. Uh, but there's also this sense of we need so many things. It's not just, well, we have to call our representatives and we have to march and we have to do that. To create this society, not just the government, but the society that we talk so often about, what we want to see on the other side of this, where everyone matters, where there's education and good health care and science is actually respected. There are things we can do now to support that, and it's not just political. It is volunteering. It's depending on what you enjoy. It could be volunteering at an animal shelter. That can be activism. It can be creating a butterfly garden because you care about climate change. And there are so many things under climate change that you could actually do something with. It's not just the laws, it's not just the regulations, it's not just at a national level. You can work on these things at the local level with things that feed your soul because you're doing them. So it can be a win-win, and hopefully someday someday we'll win.
And I think we're winning incrementally. Like we win each time we do a little something because that is inherently rewarding. We've talked about this before. And when we step into who we are and are able to do the things that are meaningful for us, that really expands us and connects us and makes us part of something larger. So, waiting for the win, which might be 2028 when we get a new president who could be named instead of he who shall not be named. Then if we're waiting for our reward, so to speak, to come until then, that's going to be exhausting. But if we have a little reward of like, oh, look, the butterflies found the garden, or oh, I felt really good when the person came to the homeless shelter and they got a meal that they wouldn't have had, or any way in which you show up supporting community, because that is so much of what we're talking about here, is the community idea of how do we do what's good for the larger good, what's in the highest good of all, which is, of course, linked to politics. Politics is life, life is politics. So this is part of that. And Ben put it beautifully. Each little thing that moves towards love is activism. I love that because we want to be active with our hearts, with our actions, with our minds, and directing that towards ourselves as well, with self-love around the times when I don't have time to go do this particular piece of activism, or the times where you're like, I do have it, I'm going to go. Just being on our own side as much as possible. It sounds kind of weird, but in a way that reduces the violence of the world by not being hard on ourselves and not being hard on others. So there's so much possibility in here to be audacious, to do something that's different, that's more of a stretch, something you didn't expect. I've talked many times about how I didn't expect to love protesting, but I do. And so those things that seem like, I could never do that. Once you do them, you can't be that same person again. Like I can't go back to being the person that's like, even the phone banking, to be honest, I did not love it. I could do it again. And I might at some point. Because part of me was like, if I kept doing this, this might become more comfortable, which maybe is a good stretch for me. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting trying to sort of find our lane that feels most aligned, where we feel the most meaning, the most significance, the most connection to whatever it is we're doing, which is part of what we were going to talk about today is, in addition to audacious activism, sort of political, identity. Like, who are you and what are the things that are most important to you? And both Joni and I concluded part of what it is what makes you the most upset, that it's not the way you would like it to be. I'd love for you to tell us, Joni, where you've landed with what the most important issue is
Yeah.
and kind of how you got there. I think that would be interesting.
Yeah. And my most important issue is combating Christian nationalism. And some of you may know that I have a PhD in pastoral counseling, which means I was trained as a counselor, but with additional training in religion and spirituality. And part of what led me there, because I did this in my 40s, I left business and went there. Part of what led me there was this feeling of I don't understand Christianity right now. This was in like the 2000s. I just don't understand what's going on. I didn't understand the objection to LGBTQ, and the arguments just kept like resonating in my ears. Like, why is this happening? And I had gay friends. Well, they're still my friends, but it wasn't just that I knew people. It was also that on this level of spirituality, because I consider myself a spiritual person, I didn't understand exclusion. I didn't understand a God, if you use that word, who says, well, you can come in and you can't. That just it didn't make sense to me. So I started this journey with going back to school to study pastoral counseling, and I did my dissertation research with conservative Christian counseling students who didn't want to work with LGBTQ clients. And one of the things that I found, which was really interesting, was my own heart softened to the people I was talking to. It's not like I was against them, but I was truly curious what was leading to this. And what I found was that, well, I found a lot of things, but one of the most important things for this discussion is that one of their concerns was betraying God. So betraying what they had grown up with, betraying this image and this understanding of God. I was like, well, after I finished my dissertation, I started thinking, how could I work with that? How could I work with that so that people expand their understanding of the divine, that which is transcendent, so that there is this sense of acceptance and that we are all equal and that everyone is loved and held and accepted. And so instead of becoming a counselor, I designed a values card sort for religious and spiritual values. And I started doing workshops with that. And I found that there is this sense of being wed to what you knew and this reluctance to change. And then I started getting really interested. Well, how do people change their minds? And as all this was happening, he who shall not be named became president for the first time. And it just got worse. Now the rhetoric got worse, and the language about exclusion got worse. And it just thinking about it now, I'm tensing up. I don't know if you can see it or hear it in my voice, but
Middle finger.
hold
Hold
my
that
middle
middle
finger.
finger to
Yes, thank
harmonize
you.
anger, people. Put that out there again.
It's that it doesn't go along with what I understand about the divine. And creating my spiritual geography podcast and blog is a way for me to work with that. Anytime I get to speak, I give sermons. It's not necessarily directly about this, but it's always indirectly. How can we open up? And Christian nationalism is the epitome of what I fight against. And I think that there's so much power that they are consolidating in Christian nationalism that is terrifying to me. It's not the way this country was founded. It's not what so many of those who have come before that I admire espoused. And I want to help push it back. I know that was a long answer, but
Well, that's the
it is.
passion. That's where you get lit up and fired up to do something about this. What struck me, and as you were talking, I just kept coming back to it, was this idea of betraying God, which is fascinating because didn't God create those same humans that they're othering and saying are not acceptable? Isn't it a betrayal of God to say, those people you made are no good? These people are the only good ones. Boy, God, you messed up.
Now you're trying
That's
to
such an
put
arrogant
logic on
perspective.
you're trying to put logic on something that isn't logical.
Right, of course. Of course. But that's what
Because it
I'm doing because I'm not in the
yeah.
middle of feeling it. I can be like, oh, I'm a little bit removed. I can go, that doesn't make any sense. That's really quite illogical, which is what we're doing a lot of times when we're othering. Of course, it comes from a place of fear, and therefore we can get really calcified in our perspectives, really a lot of black and white thinking, really unable to soften, as you suggest, to be able to see some other perspective, to see their perspective, to perhaps even see their side and be in a different place with it. So I'll talk a little bit about sort of what's gone on for me. Joni and I met this week and we were talking about this whole political identity thing. And I was like, I haven't exactly figured out where my thing is. Like, there's so many things that get me fired up. But when I leaned into it a little farther, sort of playing with, climate and corruption and banned books and everything, I realized the part that really, really gets me and has for a very, very long time is the lack of equity for women. Whether it's in medical research for women, whether it's in equity in pay, there's just so many different ways in which women are treated as less than. And that is really something that fires me up because the whole hierarchy of somebody's above the other people to me is like a huge amount of the problem here. Our dominance is why we have climate change issues. Like, we're going to dominate Mother Earth, right? Like, all the ways in which we consider ourselves better than someone else. And so I think the more we get equity with women and men, that helps solve a lot of the problems that are underneath. Now, there are certainly many, many subcategories to that, abortion and so on. And I haven't figured out exactly where to spend the bulk of my time, but I'm clear now. I'm clearer than I ever have been. Thank goodness we've had these conversations for weeks, and I've never actually asked myself because I was busy trying to like pepper my efforts at different places. Like, oh, that's the current thing that's bugging me, and and
Mm.
I think that's valid to some extent. Like, this week, there's a vote. You can object to them restricting mail-in voting. You can sign a petition before July 2nd, I believe it is, to tell the Postal Service to stand up to this reduction in restriction to mail-in voting. So there's these little things that come into your awareness you can do, but then to have something that really is your thing you're coming back to and coming back to and coming back to can be very powerful. So I think if you're trying to find your thing, I think it's like what upsets you most and what sort of feels like your wheelhouse, like your thing. Like having been a woman in engineering, I I have this in spades. Oh, you should smile more. The more crazy comments. Oh, you're too attractive to be an engineer. Like, really? Like, oh my gosh, the biases and stupidity and ridiculousness. And then to see the pay, the difference in pay, the disparity in pay and so on. I mean, it's just I have a lot of that in there. And so many of my clients come to me who are women who in some way or another feel less than, who don't feel good enough, who somehow feel that they haven't met expectations. And so to see that over and over, like even if 10% of that could be better, like that would be huge. So okay, I sort of have my marching orders, but I am going to continue to hone kind of where I'm headed. But I'm so
Yeah,
glad we had that conversation this week.
yeah, and I think it's really interesting that Ben says, "You go, sister."
I saw that. Thanks, Ben. I will. I'm a little lit up now.
Um, I think it's interesting that both of these things that we get passionate about have to do with people being treated equally. And there's so much of the other things that are in here are the immigrants. We've talked about that before, but also that no one is above. And so I would say that even climate change and the environment falls into that. We are not above creatures, and this goes back into Christian nationalism, that there's this sense that God put us humans here to rule over everyone and do whatever we want, which is kind of a misreading of the text, but it's also a misunderstanding of what I see, some sort of spirit, universal consciousness, or whatever it is, that everything has value. And as we're talking, there's so much of all of these lives that we've done, all of these conversations that we have, is about that one thing. There's value everywhere. And whenever it gets squashed or someone says, well, you don't matter and I'm above that, that's when we are incensed, and we want to make it better because we believe the opposite, that there is value in every human. There is value in the planet. There's value in the insects and the animals and the flora and fauna and everything, every person, every country, every perspective, even those that we disagree with. There's something behind that value.
And it sort of fascinates me in a way that there's a sort of a training, sort of a conditioning of people and their families, for example, to, these kind of people are no good. And therefore, then how do you make connection? If connection is really about being open-hearted and available and warm, perhaps, then isn't it easier to connect if you're more open to all? It seems like the conditioning really restricts your ability to be with people. It just makes your possible circle smaller and smaller and smaller until you're practically isolated, that you're just in this small environment of people who believe exactly what you believe, who do things exactly the way you do things, who look exactly like you do, for example, in the case of, being biased against other races. And it just really seems a way of creating isolation. They can argue that's exceptionalism, that they're so special, that they like being in this little clan of just these few people. But to me, it's sad. Like it's kind of a lonely, us against the world kind of perspective.
That's boring, in my opinion.
That too.
No, I live in one of the most diverse places in the country. It's ranked as one of the most diverse towns in the country. And hearing different languages, um, the
The food.
the food,
I
the food,
love different foods. It's
and the
amazing.
grocery stores where you can get some of these odd things, and it's beautiful. And it just makes me curious. And we've talked before about how curiosity is a superpower. If you can be curious about someone else, someone who's different than you are, and it also works with someone who believes things that light your hair on fire. It worked for me when I was doing my dissertation research.
Oh,
It it worked in the conversations I've had since then with people who are in my lane. When I'm talking about spirituality, when I'm talking about religion, I can have a conversation with someone with whom I disagree because I know my stuff. And I also, with the counseling training, I know how to to talk about it so that I'm not too offensive.
too
But
offensive. Just somewhat offensive.
I'm somewhat
Oh,
offensive because I'm saying something that disagrees with what they're saying. So, but I learn when I'm talking to someone with whom I disagree. So it's not just this openness to those, this world of wonder out there, which is wonderful and we want, but somehow cultivating an open-hearted attitude to those with whom we disagree. It doesn't mean that we're not pushing back because, by God, we have to push back. This is untenable. But
yes.
you might find that you are at a dinner with someone who voted differently than you do, or working at a soup kitchen with someone who thinks differently than you do. And being able to say, I don't have all the answers. The sense of humility and curiosity go hand in hand so that we can have the conversations in a way uh, that might help plant a seed to change someone's mind. And that goes with knowing we don't have all the answers, but it also goes with just being fine with not knowing the outcome. That what we do now, we don't know the outcome of it. We could plant a seed and it takes root. We don't know. We could do all this work and maybe the outcomes we want don't happen today. It doesn't mean that the work we're doing isn't important and that we are and can be links in a chain to something that might come to fruition later. But by following that sense of what I'm passionate about and what I'm knowledgeable about so that I can speak truth, I can speak statistics, I can speak facts, I can speak in a way that is hard to refute. And all of that, hopefully we see soon. I'd like to wave my magic wand and this nightmare be over, but it might not happen that quickly. But we still move forward. We still keep marching.
You've got me thinking about the word entitlement because the other thing that struck me about your story about working with people that didn't want to work with LGBTQ people was that they weren't ashamed to say they didn't want to. Somehow you found this population of people that were like, I don't want to do that. And to me, that's kind of like from my upbringing, if you had a bias like that, you'd probably be sort of sneaky about it because part of you knew it wasn't good, but part of you also believed it. So you'd be like, you'd be quiet. They're open about it. There's this level of entitlement of like, no, no, we openly, we claim our rightness and our righteousness and our And just like the whole thing of like, oh, slavery wasn't that bad. Like we're entitled to now, whitewash that, literally white, and say it's not that bad. Like, oh, were you ever a slave? Were you ever ripped from your family? I don't think so. So I think there's a thing here in this audaciousness of we're entitled to be bigger than we think we can be.
Mm.
That we do not have to sit with the limits of what we've done in the past or what people expect of us or what we could do to make a difference being limited by something. I don't know, like there's some way in which we are too limited in our expectations. I think we could do something bigger. And that's what we're inviting today, is to lean into the possibility that what if there is something there? What if there's a way in which you could lead something or start something or add something that is beyond what you thought you could do and beyond the expectations you have of yourself or others have of you. So many people in hindsight go, I never thought I would step into that role. And so let's keep doing that and see what could happen. Rick put in there, you could put up a sign for Joanna Mendoza. That's the woman that's running in our district that we want to take over the MAGA guy. And who knows if that could influence someone? That's little. But then can you do something bigger and like grow on and just keep adding to the mix and adding more energy and adding more support and finding more resources. It's a fascinating time to think about how we can build a movement, how we can build power, how we can build energy and enthusiasm. Not just the anti stuff, but the we want this, we want this, we want this stuff. A lot of talk this week about who the radicals are because of the Democratic Socialists having won big this week. And Joanne Freeman and Heather Cox Richardson both say the radicals are the radical right who want to take away all of our rights and our benefits and so on. I want us to be radical in a way of radical love and compassion, radical motivation, radical political activism. I guess you can tell I'm fired up.
Well, and remember that we're also trying to create community. We're trying to get more people fired up. And so, whatever you can do there, which isn't necessarily directly political, but whatever you do when you are out with people and talking to people and making connections can be audacious activism because we are creating a movement. We are links in a chain that whatever Christy and I do here in these lives, it may reach someone who does get fired up, who sees a different perspective that had already been softened. The ground had already been softened. Maybe the seed had already been planted. But this link in that chain might be the fertilizer that helps it grow. You don't know. But whatever you're doing that grows more love, that helps build that community, that helps make this world a better place, this country a better place, that helps save the earth. Whatever it is that you are most passionate about, there are numerous ways to help. It doesn't have to look political to be political.
That is an interesting thing because people who don't do politics, they do life and they're interacting with people all the time. And what they say and what they do does make a difference. And it does have a human impact, which is political
Mhm.
in that sense. It is really us about, us connecting as fellow humans that this is all about because it's the dehumanization that is at the core of these problems that we're facing right now. And that they're selling it, they're repackaging and selling it as not dehumanization oftentimes. So people will be misled and so on. The more we can connect, the more we can be in community, the more we can support one another. It's kind of, you know, undermining the grand plan of the regime, so to speak. They can't stop us from connecting. And that's where the power comes.
I love that. They can't stop us from connecting. They can't stop us from moving forward in love. So, on that note, let's put love into action together.
Together. See you next time. Thanks so much for coming.
Bye.